It was always nice you could go to those games and walk up and get a really terrific seat on game day because there was nobody there, so you could pretty much buy it and then see really good other teams from other cities. But in any event, we had like 9 fish were found in the river. Now, in the last year, we've surveyed and found well over 40 species of fish. And the unit numbers of fish per mile is in the 500s to thousands of fish per mile. So it's a huge change. And the Cuyahoga River now is officially listed as a steelhead fishery. So you can go up the ship channel in the shadow of ArcelorMittal steel plant and actually catch steelhead trout, and all the way up to the Brecksville Dam in 82, fine steelhead, when there were none of those fish. And we have some of the leading populations of herons and seagulls that exist now. And those fish live in the river because there are fish to eat. They wouldn't be there if there weren't. And those are all symptoms of an enormous amount of recovery that's happened. And because of that, there's continued interest in growing related investment in the river and the river economy. One of those is the gentrification of the lower third of the ship channel. The Flats East Bank, the Port Authority, the West Bank investment in Jacobs Group and K&D Development has all happened since the cleanup of the recovery of the Cuyahoga River became pronounced and highly visible. The completion of the towpath trail along the river into the heart of the city is well underway and enjoys great community support and enthusiasm because people want to be near the river again as it makes its ultimate connection into the heart of the city. And the city is now embracing City of Cleveland is embracing a strategic plan for the future of the port and ship channel area of the city in terms of how to pay for it, how to restore it, what the integrated benefits can be. And we're thrilled to be part of that strategic planning process. But it also suggests that the city has come to value the ship channel and the ship channel community as part of the Cuyahoga River as a major economic asset, and that's important to know also. Well, I want to touch now a little bit on beyond place-based investment, that environmental restoration is also a business and job incubator. As Mike mentioned, I created a program for the RAP called ClearTech, which is a great acronym. It stands for Cuyahoga Lake Erie Environmental Restoration Technology Enterprise Center. And it's a long acronym, but it's fun to have. But to merge the needs of the river and environmental restoration with emerging technology and the opportunity to try to coalesce outside investment to the purposes of environmental restoration. So 4 key points that drove the structure that we developed for the ClearTech model. One was the river and tributary restoration requires sustained effort by all segments of the community. This is not a one-time fix and the river stays fixed. It requires continuing stewardship, continuing investment, an ongoing body of mechanisms and efforts that have to take place over our future. We have to take ownership and for the stewardship of our watershed and our river. The second key point, though, is a lot of the nature of existing and emerging pollutants are very susceptible to creative approaches and new technology. You may have read a lot recently about personal care and pharmaceuticals that are being found in the water supply. Most of our treatment technology doesn't deal with those. It was never designed to, but we're finding more and more of this as it bioaccumulates in our discharge and treatment systems and ends up in the Great Lakes. I know sometimes it's hard to get excited about Prozac in the water supply, but it has a potential of being impact down the road. Come on, Prozac, it's a suppressant. Oh, well, never mind. So apparently you guys aren't on Prozac so much. The other thing is that he's off his Prozac back there. Environmental restoration makes good economic sense as a business and job incubator. And I want to talk about that for a second. And then also the final point I want to touch on is federal investment in the restoration of the Great Lakes is providing a market pull of things that we should be doing and organizing ourselves to capture funds to get our tax money back. So I'm sort of what I would call an unreconstructed taxpayer. I'm not happy when I pay my taxes, and I want my money back. And so if the federal government wants to spend a lot of money on Great Lakes restoration, I think we should organize ourselves to get it back as much as we can. But I want to talk just for a minute about trends in water technology and opportunities in our region for that as a business job incubator. Scarcity worldwide and illnesses and diseases are global problems. And so as appreciation for the value and necessity of water grows, so does the demand for new technology to improve treatment, cut waste, reclaim resources, and in some cases even harvest energy with low-impact devices, underwater turbines and things like that. But it's important to remember, in my view, there's no alternatives. I'm sorry, let me phrase that. There are alternatives for energy production, and our economy nationally is looking at a variety of sources for alternate energy. There's no alternative for water. You've got to work with what you have, and so technology and improvements in our stewardship and husbandry and reclamation and purification of water can have profound benefit and value, not only to us locally, but to the region and the Great Lakes and also globally. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind. So I captured a report from an intellectual property law firm, Foley & Gardner, who had done a survey of U.S. patents in water technology. And I had an interesting conversation with them about this issue. And so I'm just going to quickly give you an overview. Last year, 2008, there were 384 water-related technology patents issued in the United States. 32% were for purification, 25% were for reclamation and treatment processes, 17% were dealing with conservation directly, like more energy or water efficiency devices. 10% dealt with wave and tide power production, 7% dealt with irrigation, 5% dealt with desalination and distillation, and 4% were dealing with metering and flow monitoring. And if you add some of these together, you get some interesting trends. One of which I'll touch on for a second is shortage of fresh water is a worldwide problem, including parts of the U.S. There were some big droughts in the Atlanta area. If you remember, they were on rationing. Nobody knows where the water for Las Vegas is going to come from in the next 20 years. People have to buy houses. They have to buy a water credit that can sometimes cost $20,000, $30,000 that you're buying access to a water system. But in the Great Lakes, we have perceived abundance, which is sometimes called perceived supply elasticity, which economists means that no matter how much you use, you think you've got plenty more where that came from. And when you stand at the shores of Cleveland and look north, you see the Great Lakes. And so nobody has an appreciation for scarcity of water, and so we've tended to be a little profligate in our use. We need to quit doing that because really only 1.2% of that water is actually renewable. Everything else is a gift from the Ice Age. It's just the water that's in the bowl. We can float boats on it, we can grow fish in it, but there's only about 1.2% of the Great Lakes is actually renewable in terms of annual rainfall and snowfall and that flows through the Great Lakes region. So efforts at conservation, lowering the slope of our consumption curve, is something we need to embrace as a market opportunity. There are industries in California that do the same things we do here that use 20% of the water we use here for the same processes. So there are parts of the country where water is scarce and more expensive that are way more attentive to the idea of conservation and efficiencies. But as energy costs go up and you have to pump water and it's heavy, it weighs 62 pounds, 62 pounds per cubic foot, the relationship of water and excess water movement becomes an energy consideration as well. So there's opportunities to be smarter, faster, better about that. If you go back and look through some of these patents, literally 33% of the patents that were issued were focused on some aspect of conservation, measuring, monitoring, and process efficiency. So that clearly suggests a worldwide trend towards recognizing the need to be more careful about our use of water. Another issue that keeps popping up is waterborne diseases. I was told, and I don't want to be quoted too heavily on this, but about 70% of the world's diseases are waterborne. Every day, 27,000 people die from a waterborne related disease. That's over almost 10 million a year globally. That's a lot of people every day just from being close to or drinking, touching water.